Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jean Stew, and today we're about to make a staple of the French cuisine called la Blanquette de veau, or the veal stew. You're going to need some veal to begin with. Here you have about 800 grams. I recommend to use about a kilo, and you're going to see depending on how many people you're cooking for. But what you want is have them in 2 to 3 centimeters chunk. For this, go to your local butcher and just ask them to cut them nicely for you. It's going to remove all of the hassle from it. Then you're going to need some cream. For the cream, I would say probably around 30% fat is the sweet spot, because it's going to be able to lift if you want to put a little bit of hair into it with the whisk. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. Then we have the flour and the butter to create the roux, which is going to be very useful to thicken up our sauce. Now onto the aromatics. You have some garlics, you have some cloves, but you also have the classic fresh herbs, parsley, bay leaf, as well as thyme. Last but not least, the vegetables. You have some carrots, onions. You also have some leeks for the aromatic, as well as white cup mushrooms. You can take some small ones or some medium-sized mushrooms. They would both work pretty well. And finally, spring onions over the top, simply because we're not putting any pearl onions. It's not the season, so this is a very, very good replacement, and it adds a little crunch to the dish. First step, preparation. Let's start by peeling our carrots. Then we're going to peel the onion. So now what we're going to do is to just remove the tip of the carrots, onions, cutting the top and the bottom. But we don't want to cut our onions, we're just going to leave them there. The tip being more narrow, you just cut it in 2 pieces, whereas the thicker part can be cut into 4 pieces. Carrots are ready. And now what we're about to do is pluck the onions with our cloves. So go frankly into it. What you're trying to do is this. So this is what you want it to look like. Cute, isn't it? The next step is going to be the leek. For that, you want to remove the green. Then we're going to chop it in half. And that's it. On top of this, you're going to add the couple bay leaf. If you have some dry one, you can just put the 1, eventually 2 of them. I'm putting 3 right there. Then you're going to need a sprig of thyme right there. 2 cloves of garlic. This is all you need for your aromatic. So we're going to put all of these guys all together aside. Put this aside. And our first step will be to put the veal inside our stewing pot. Then we cover it with water. Bring it to a boil. You can see here are all of the blood and impurities that were on your meat. So what you want to do next is to get rid of this. Bring your different aromatics. Make sure everything is nicely submerged and leave it to boil for about an hour and a half. And we're going to start with our mushrooms. What we're going to start doing is remove the tip, as usual, but then you're going to use your knife to kind of grab the skin of the mushrooms. If your mushrooms are very small, don't bother doing this. Chop them in half. And put them aside. What we can also do is to start lifting our cream. la crème fouettée. C'est bon. Alright, it's been an hour 15 minutes for me. It can be in between an hour to an hour and a half. The best way to know whether it's cooked or not, grab a little piece of that veal, try it out. If it's too chewy, just leave it for another 15. But for me, this is about right. Get our meat out as well as the carrots, and we will also start removing the different aromats. Alright, so we now have our veal stock right here, which we're going to leave aside for a minute. And we're now going to put our pan back on the fire. No need to wash it at this stage. Drizzle with olive oil. And now we're going to put the mushrooms. Alright, mushroom looking good. Now we're going to pop the butter, and we're going to reduce the heat quite substantially because we don't want the butter to burn, and the flour as well. So it's 50-50 flour and butter. That's what we call a roux. Whisk that together nicely. And you don't want to brown it too much. But we will now put our veal stock slowly. Now you can see that the consistency is more of a velouté type right here, which is almost perfect. We're just gonna let it cook for another 5 to 10 minutes so that it can reduce slightly, but don't let it bubble. We just want to cook it very, very gently right there. For now, and in the meantime, what we want to do now, because we're about to finish and nothing is going to cook a lot anymore, we're going to swap our cutting board, a new one, and we're going to start separating the meat from the carrots so that we can chop the carrot in smaller pieces. So now we're just going to cut our carrot really roughly into bite-sized pieces, and we can pop the carrots back with the meat. The last two things that we want to prep now are the green onions and the parsley. We can mix them well. They're gonna do a very nice garnish for our dish. Lemon right here. What we want for this is to use 1/2 for the juice that we're going to add to our sauce. I'm going to use the peel. What you want to make sure is that you're using unwaxed lemon and that you have some organic ones, just to make sure you don't have any problems there. So ours are unwaxed and organic, so we are going to use them. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes and we are now going to season it. Now we are ready to put back the different ingredients, starting with the mushroom, and to leave the leek in as well. Some people prefer to let them out. Look at that. Magnificent. Absolutely perfect. Texture is still a little liquid, but this is why we're adding the final touch, which you may have forgotten: whipped cream. Bringing the whole thing to life from a texture point of view. It's a technique from Philippe Etchebest's book, implemented to my own recipe right here. But you will see that everything becomes all white and unctuous. Right, the blanquette is ready and it smells absolutely delicious. Now, here goes how I usually do. You can either pop some rice. This is the best way to eat blanquette, is to eat it with a little bit of rice. But what you want to do right here is have a generous portion for each and every one of your guests. So pop enough sauce so that it coats all of spring onion and parsley mix, and a little bit of lemon zest over the top. This is it for my twist over the famous recipe of the Blanquette de veau. Now, bon appétit! Let me try. Absolutely perfect. Childhood memories, you know. Yeah, absolutely. Behind the scenes. Spécial dédicace à Dédette.